If you are a business owner wanting to grow your Instagram and heck, maybe even go viral, this is the podcast for you. Today I sat down with Brandon Sardee from Poorboy Coffee in San Francisco, California, who grew his Instagram from zero, as they all start, to 63,000 followers in about a year. And he did that all while single-handedly running a pop-up, growing his business, starting roasting, e-commerce, the whole thing. And he did it through really simple content that you and I could all do. It was just an approach that he started to get down to a science and stick with what works. It was a really good time for him to walk us through that, and I hope you will learn something. Thanks so much for joining. Well, Brandon, thank you for jumping on the Valor Coffee podcast. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
Thanks for coming on. In case people don't know you, you are owner proprietor of Poorboy Coffee, yes?
Yeah, Poorboy Coffee. Going strong. Little over a year now. So,
and the reason why we wanted to chat with you on the podcast is I, as we already talked about, saw your brand first just from the algorithm serving it right up to me on an Instagram reel. I think it was a reel of you at your pop-up, and I clicked on your page and just saw like how big the page was. And it seemed that you took somewhat of a similar path that we took, which was starting off as a pop-up and trying to grow it into a brick and mortar. But I was just kind of taken with how you formatted your content and like how you were able to amass the amount of followers that you had with seemingly just an iPhone recording. Is that correct? Or like what was your setup there?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty minimal. Actually, my wife, she does like social media for like restaurants on the side. Cool. She kind of quit her job and like went for like her thing. And that kind of really inspired me. So I decided to do the same thing. I hated my job. I quit. But yeah, obviously the name Poorboy is a big giveaway, right? So we started with $500. I did have some obviously stuff outside of that $500. So like I had a little camera. It was like a little pocket camera. I think it's DJI.
We had the same one.
Yeah, the odds. So we had that. That one's super easy to use, and I just kind of set it up here, set it up there as I was serving. Kind of did little different perspectives and angles, and at the end of the weekend, I would just piece everything together and make a couple videos out of it, and post them and see what happens. You know?
Yeah, I think this isn't the first time we've talked about that camera on our podcast, but that thing is incredible.
It really is. It really
especially is. For me, who I'm doing things in coffee, but that doesn't mean I'm a good like tech guy that like knows about cameras and settings on all these things. So having that is basically just like a more foolproof way to get really good content.
It honestly really is, and I recommend it to like so many people. I have had a lot of people ask me about that camera, and I've probably sold a good amount of them, and you guys probably have too, recommending it. So
yeah, we need
these guys sponsor this podcast, right?
Please. Well, I want to go back to the beginning of Poorboy. I know you said you quit your job to start this. A lot of people that are listening to this right now are in that phase where they're thinking about starting something, or they are starting something, or they're years down the line and can remember that season. What was that like, kind of stepping over the cliff, right? Of like, you have this secure job and you're like, okay, I'm going to get into coffee, which is probably not going to replace your income. Like, how did you manage all of that?
It's a good question. And I think I kind of went in a little naive in a way, right? Thinking that it would replace my income really quickly if the Instagram did take off. But kind of like initially, I was like quiet quitting at my job. So I was kind of like not really working because it was a remote like sales job, until they finally like let me go, which actually took a bit of time. So I was able to kind of get some planning done while that was going on. And then after I was like, oh, I went back into the just serving tables at a restaurant. At the restaurant I worked at when I was going to school before I had the sales job and stuff. So that's kind of how I managed it. I basically said, okay, I'll just start serving tables at night. In the mornings, I'll be able to work on the coffee stuff, right? So that's how I kind of went about it initially. And then I kind of realized, all right, this isn't going to take off as fast as I wanted to. So but as long as I'm being consistent, then hopefully, we'll start to see a little payoff in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to give more context of your page, like I have it pulled up here, and you have 98 posts, 63.6 thousand followers, and I'm logged in on my personal Instagram, and it says, how it shows you like people that are following your page. So there's 31 of the people that I follow that follow your page, and it's kind of like Facebook mutual friends, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, like, when you started this, how soon into that process did you decide I'm going to really document this and like make social media a big part of what I'm doing?
Yeah. Honestly, that was like right from the get-go. So I kind of rewinding a little bit. I had a couple other food businesses in the past. As I was going to college, I started. I sold pastas at farmers markets. I did pizza pop-ups at like breweries, wineries, and farmers markets as well. And food businesses are very tough. A lot of food waste. The labor alone is just very intensive compared to coffee. I'm not saying that coffee isn't hard. It is very hard. But yeah, so the food businesses were tough. But basically, those businesses kind of tapered off because I wasn't really, I had the product and I was focused on the just more sort of the product side of things, but the marketing side was just kind of like non-existent. So for this one, my main priority was, okay, I'm just gonna, focus on the marketing from the get-go, document the journey, because I think it is an interesting concept, right? Starting with $500 and kind of seeing how big we can scale this thing. It's something that I think that people can invest into, follow along, cheer us on, and hopefully support. So yeah, right from the jump, I started the page February 9th of last year, 2024, and the first pop-up was February 10th, so the next day.
Wow. Yeah, so a lot of people that are starting, they have like their startup budget that they will allocate a certain amount of money for equipment, the build out, staff, starting inventory. But then there's this other line item, marketing. And I think there's a lot of confusion around how much that should be. What should that marketing be? I know like when we were first starting, people would ask us like, how are you going to market yourself? Like, what are you going to do for advertising? And I would always just be sort of perplexed at the conversation or at the question. So I'm like, well, what would I do besides just like post on my Instagram, which is free, but
right.
So you mentioned starting with a focus on marketing, but what exactly was your strategy with that? Yeah, your strategy and your approach to that.
Yeah, I kind of just winged it. I didn't really have like a drawn out strategy, but as far as like social media went, my strategy on that was I see a lot of content out there with like founder led content, right? So the founders, CEOs of companies, putting out content themselves, being transparent about businesses and stuff like that. And I saw that it worked out. So I was like, all right, I'll go that route. I'll tell the story as if it was like a TV show. You know what I mean? So like have uh, different parts or days or whatnot, and show everything very transparently as it goes on. And then I had a pretty strict schedule of like posting every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'd have a reel out, and then 7 days a week I would post a story. So it really just anything. It was just kind of like I could repost somebody else's thing, or I could even just repost my own reel, or just a little text saying anything. Honestly, for that, and that's really it. I just kind of just kept doing that, and for the first like I want to say like month and a half, maybe it was like posting to like nobody. And then like every post you started to see like Instagram push it like a little more and a little more. And so I knew there was something there. And then, then I had one video just kind of blow up, and then like tons of followers started flooding in like super quick, and just kind of kept rolling with that.
And at what point did you decide on the structure of those reels? Because that was one of the things I noticed was that you start a lot of the reels the same exact with the same words.
Yeah. So I think I came across like one of the like a social a content creator that basically goes over content creation and how to grow like social media stuff. But I think that they said just kind of go with what works, and don't be afraid to like test the waters out a little bit to find what works. So basically, I in the very beginning I had like an introduction video where I just kind of introduced myself and what I'm doing. And then I started like messing around with like funny like memes, I guess, like pictures or like just like when that third cup of coffee hits and like a guy dancing, something stupid like that. And then I had one like business tip stuff. And then I had the kind of part one and part two of bootstrapping a coffee business to see how big I can scale it, right? And those were the ones that were getting a little more hits than the other ones. So I literally just erased all those like funny meme and kind of like all those posts that were just testing the waters. And I just went like full force into the part one, part two thing and of the bootstrapping series.
Yeah, it reminds me, I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before potentially, but it reminds me of this comparison study I saw on these two different running shoe brands. One of them was Salomon, which wearing right now. And then the other one was more of a traditional brand. I can't remember exactly who it was, but they were comparing and contrasting those two brands and their different approaches to marketing. And they were highlighting how they were posing the question, what are these two brands selling with their marketing? Right. And at the end of the day, they're selling shoes, right? They're both selling the same thing. I'm sure the tech on a Salomon pair of running shoes is, not too dissimilar from the other brand, right? But their approach to content was entirely different. Salomon was all of their content was lifestyle content. That was, they would do a vlog about like a runners meetup, and people would be wearing Salomons. Not all of them though, and it was more just like it was content geared towards the people who would maybe buy Salomons in the future.
Exactly.
As opposed to the other brand, it was just all about the product itself. It was like, this is our product. These are the features. These are the upsides. Here's the price. We're going to run ads, just getting our product out there. How would you put your content on that spectrum, and what made you go with that direction?
Well, I think related to like the shoe stuff, I think it's kind of like creating a community in a way, right? So I didn't really plan for this necessarily, but like a lot of our following is other, small businesses and people that just have this like dream of starting a coffee company, right? Whether that's starting a shop, a cart, or catering business, or whatever. but yeah, I think it's just it's like I said, it's just kind of like just kind of showing this side of things that people can relate to. So starting a coffee business from the ground up, showing all the ebbs and flows of like the business and like my highs and my lows and stuff like that. It's super relatable to people that are starting their own coffee thing or have maybe owned their coffee shop for the past 5 years. They've gone through the same things or are going through the same things now. And I think that just kind of draws them even closer to me and, helps me in a way to, build that community and have people rooting me on from the sidelines.
And so you started with a pop-up. I'm curious how many or, roughly what percentage of the people that came to that pop-up learned about Poorboy from your viral reels?
Yeah, a good amount, honestly. So it's kind of funny. There's like two ends of the stick here. There's one where like I owe a lot to the social media, and it did drive in like people from the past weekend. We've had a couple was like, oh, we drove from Marin, which is like not too far, but it's still a hike to go get coffee. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In our old pop-ups, people would drive from San Jose, which is like a good hour drive, again, big hike to get coffee. And so, yeah, it would drive business into the shop and people would travel to the shop. But at the same time, coffee is also very hyper local, I guess. So, I mean, for me personally, like I have a favorite coffee shop. And luckily they will open up on not too long ago near me. So I could walk there now. But before I would never even go that often to their shop because it was a good 15-20 minute drive. And it's like, I could just, walk 5-10 minutes and get coffee. Right. So, yeah, when we realized that, that's kind of what, pushed us in the direction of roasting. Cause we realized, a very small percentage of people on the social media were actually in San Francisco. Now, how many of those people are actually in our hyper local neighborhood of San Francisco, within like a 2-block radius or whatnot?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at is, like with our Instagram and even with this podcast, obviously we're dedicating time and money to marketing. And then you have to ask the question, who is consuming that marketing? And then you have to ask the question, do I have something to sell them? And
Exactly.
because you're viewing your time and your resources and your assets as an investment that you would ideally want a return on. And so
Right.
it's like, I just think it's interesting. You have this global brand or national brand that is reaching all these people, but like how many of those people can actually buy something from you? Which why I was like, I wonder if that's why he went towards roasting, because then you actually, can have something to sell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's and coffee is a tough business because it's so cutthroat and so competitive, right? There's so many people that roast coffee locally to anyone. So even though we do have a global audience too, and there's still so many roasters in their local neighborhood that they're going to support, which I prefer anyway. You're right. But yeah, no, it's interesting. But yeah, that's definitely what pushed us to the roasting side of things because the coffee shop is there's still a huge pro for the coffee shops too, because I definitely want to get a permanent brick and mortar soon because I feel like right now we're, even though we have pop-ups, it's still, we can't do much in those pop-ups. We don't have a lot of space. So we can't have like a full menu that we'd like to have. And also I'd like to, do more community focused events and stuff like that in collaboration with our hopefully future partner, brick and mortar shop. But
there's so many different approaches you could take towards marketing your coffee shop, like for the local brand or people in your neighborhood. And I can remember this this sort of trap that we got into with our Instagram, where it was in a season where we were pretty understaffed on the marketing side, which really just means my business partner Riley tried to post on Instagram every once in a while.
Yeah.
And in that season, our Instagram just became this bulletin board of the happenings of our cafe. That was all it was. It was like, we have this new, and if you go on a lot of coffee shops or coffee companies' Instagrams, it often is this way, where if you go back on their posts, it's just like seasonal menu drop, and then like pictures of the seasonal drinks. And then you scroll down a little bit farther and it's like seasonal menu drop. And it's like the season before that or whatever.
It's so boring,
It is, and it's not only is it not great content to consume, I also see that the algorithm doesn't really push that as much, know?
No, not at all. Well, I mean, it's also like the algorithm itself is like, it's what it does is like it like tests out to like a very small audience, like outside of your following, and if it reacts, if people actually engage with it, then they're gonna or watch it for a little longer than a couple seconds and not just like swipe through it, then they'll push it to a little more. And then, kind of like these micro tests, right, to kind of keep pushing it. At least that's what I think. I'm not like a, expert in the algorithm or anything, but, and then when you think about, having a product focused post, like something a Starbucks would do, or, something like that, it is so uninteresting and so boring that people just swipe right through it because like, cool, you got a new drink. You know what I mean? Like, and if you think about like restaurant marketing too, like my wife does the social media for restaurants, and a big thing that she tries to do is like not just take pictures of their plates that they offer on the menu, because it's like, all right, cool, there's a pasta, nice, but to kind of introduce people to the staff, the characters that actually work in that restaurant. It does so much more than just posting a picture of a plate of food, right?
Right.
But
it's the most classic saying ever, but it's like, you're not just selling the plate of food, you're selling the experience. And so then how do you market the experience? My favorite restaurants or bars or coffee shops, whatever. Yes, the product is awesome, but that's sort of a given. And whenever I think about like my favorite restaurant in the world is Ticonderoga Club. If you're ever in Atlanta, you got to go to Ticonderoga Club. I do think about their drinks, I do think about their food, but I really just think about like Alec, the one of the bartenders that's there, and like how I'm going to get to talk to him, and how when I walk in, like I know he's going to be like, "Hey, what's up, Ross?" And that like that makes me feel awesome, because and that's like obviously what we're chasing after in our guest experience is like, how do we make people feel, and what do we want them to feel while they're in our space? I'm curious for you in the pop-up stage. I can't remember if you've already mentioned this, but where were you popping up? It was in someone else's space, and what were they doing there when you weren't popping up?
Pop-ups, basically we would find spaces that they don't have to be closed, but it's a plus when they are closed, because you have your kind of own space or whatnot. But at the start, we knew a wine bar owner. He has 2 wine bars, and they would do like breakfast burritos one day a week. So at one location, it was like on a Saturday morning. The other one was a Sunday morning. And I was like, can I sell coffee, in the mornings, because it's really popular. There's always like a line. And I was just trying to figure out like a good complimentary thing that I can offer to that foot traffic that's already existing. So, I was like, I could do the cold brew thing, which I got the idea from you guys. I forgot who said it, but they were talking about like a lot of the drinks are already iced. So, if you're starting off small, you could do a cold brew concentrate. And I was like, oh, sounds like a good idea. So I went with that and made a couple, like, I think I had like 4 drinks on the menu. It was like a still cold brew. And then the other 3 were like mocktail kind of style things. It was both wine bars. They had existing foot traffic there. We're at a wine bar right now with our pop-up on the weekends. Wine bars are kind of our thing, I guess. They're always, either closed. They're t- typically closed in the mornings because, we was drinking wine in the morning. And yeah, it's always like a cool, like rad looking bar space, right? So,
And so you said you've been in a couple different pop-ups, and that
mm,
was, you were kind of in that flow, and then eventually it got closed down by the health department. Is that
yeah. Well, this is so. Yeah, a couple times actually. So it's funny when a lot of people on social media they'll be like, $500. You can't start a business with $500. I won't even pay for like permitting. I'm like, you're absolutely right.
it didn't?
I didn't have permitting. And they're like, that doesn't even cover rent. I'm like, you're absolutely right there as well. That's why the whole pop up idea works. Luckily for the first wine bars, he didn't want to charge me anything. He was like, I just want you to do your thing. You know what I mean? I'm like, sweet. And the other places, like the pop up we have now, is a percentage of revenue. So it's pretty sweet because even if we have a bad day, we're just paying a percentage off of that. That's comfortable for us. So, yeah. So where's our going?
Well, how I don't know how much you want to
Oh yeah,
share about it, but like
the health
what
department
happened?
thing.
I need to know the deets.
Yeah. So we did have a pop up residency at this space. The guy was like trying to sell the lease. It was empty. It used to be like a Korean grocery store thing. It has a kitchen in the back, and it was already permitted for with the health department. And I already knew that I needed to have my own permitting as like Poorboy Coffee, my own, like my name on it. But the landlord was like, he's like, yeah, our name's on it. It's all good. You're fine. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm not going to push it too much. You know what I mean? So I went with it, and it lasted. I mean, it was a good like 3 months actually. No, 2.5 months in. And then someone from the health department came in. They're like asking for permits. And I was like, oh yeah, it's right over here. And obviously it doesn't have my name on it. And they're like, so, where's your permits? And I was like, oh no, I thought we were all good. The place is permitted, and just kind of acting stupid, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but they were super nice, honestly. I was like, I really don't want to shut down or anything. She's like, no, you don't have to shut down. I'll send you everything over email that you need to fill out. We'll get you paid up, and then we'll come in for an inspection. And it took them a while to even come in for the inspection, but they did. And by the time they came in for the inspection, that was my last week at that pop-up space anyway. So, and then the second time around, we had a sandwich pop-up that was, popping up next to us. And they're awesome. They're like our pop-up buddies at this point. Yeah, I think we're assuming maybe a neighboring business that sells breakfast sandwiches maybe got, pissed at how busy we were getting, and might have called the health department, or maybe just a normal person on the street. Who knows? But someone called the health department. They saw the espresso machine, and we had like a mobile setup where it was running off of a pump, not really plumbed into the wall. So basically, that's all we had to really do, just plumb it in. So we're back, but yeah,
It's whenever you have a business like that, like it's so fragile,
yeah,
Like I'm sure you can relate with that. I can remember the first run in that we had with, well, actually, it was the second run in we had with the health department. We started off as a pop up in a co working space, and we were in the back of this alley, and all we had was this A-frame sign that was like, towards the road.
mm-hmm.
And I can remember my two business partners were in Charleston learning how to roast coffee, and so I was there solo. And someone from the health department walked in, and they were like, "What is this?" And I was like, and my stomach immediately begins to drop because we had a catering license, which is different from a vending license, at least where we are. So, catering is like, you're prepaid for the event, you go and serve, and then you bring all of your stuff back to your base of operations and you clean everything. But we didn't have a vending license. And so we were just winging it. Like you said, playing stupid. just trying to make it work. And I like start, rifling under the cart for our catering license, and I pull out the catering license, and he was just like, no, this is not at all what I'm asking for.
Yeah.
And they ended up giving us a variance, basically just like bending the rules for us, because we told them, like, we love this city of Alpharetta, like it's up and they knew it was up and coming, and so they wanted to see young entrepreneurs who were excited about investing in the community. And we were like, we plan on opening a cafe in this same building eventually. Can we just stay open until then? And they were like, yeah. And then
Nice.
it ended up being fun.
It depends on who you get. You know what I mean? It is kind of funny. The past two food businesses I had, the one of them was a cottage food operation, which means you're basically just operating from you could sell low risk foods that you made in your own house. So that one was like pretty easy, and like a small fee. And then the second one was like, the pizza one. So that's a little more high risk, because then you have the cheeses and, stuff like that. Stuff that can actually like really go bad. So it's kind of funny. But the reason why I decided not to, first of all, I didn't have like a lot of money to really invest into a business like that. So I kind of was like, I knew the risk I was taking with not getting the permitting, and I knew it was going to happen at some point. With the health department coming in, it wasn't like a matter of if, it was a matter of when, right? But I'm kind of glad I did do it that way. I don't want to recommend like anyone do that. But at the same time, like, I was able to get to a point where like I was self-employed and comfortable enough to, like, when the health department did walk in, I was ready to pay those fees that I needed to become legitimate. But yeah, it all matters. Like, it's funny, like a lot of people do get shut down when someone comes in. So it's interesting that, depending on who you get, they could be a little more lenient, But right. I think I was like kind of like pleading too. I was like, please do not shut me down. You know what I mean? Like, I really need this right now. This is where I make a living,
Yeah.
And she was like, oh yeah, you're good.
Is it just you on the payroll? I know you mentioned your wife is involved to some degree too, but she's doing other stuff. So is it mostly just you?
Yeah, it's mostly just me. She helps out when she can. She'll be at the pop-ups, help me out, because it is tough when she's not there. Making drinks and rigging people up is, it's a lot, especially when we get those busy times. And especially having just a single group machine, and being in San Francisco, where it's like, especially in June, where it's just, June gloom, full force. Everyone wants steam drinks, so she helps out when she can, though.
When did you make the jump to upgrading to an espresso machine? Because we've talked some, like you mentioned, about starting with cold brew, and obviously, like, the reason why people would want to do that is just it's lower startup costs, and it allows you to at least let your brand exist and like get in the minds of the people in the community. But then there's that big jump to purchasing an espresso machine and a grinder, and I see you have a simple cart sitting behind you.
Yeah.
I know that's a big jump for a lot of people, especially when they're starting in a similar financial situation to you, like with $500. So how was that jump, and like how did you manage all of that?
Yeah, it's so all right. So basically, starting off with the $500 thing was, it was good. I don't think I would be where I am today without social media, honestly, because when we did start to see like the jump in social media, there was a lot more people coming out to our first pop-ups at the wine bar, and when we just had Cold Brew, and they'd be like, "Hey, saw you on social media," and blah blah blah. So I think we did make a lot of sales from that initial jump. And then when we moved into that like residency spot that I was saying, we started off that spot with just Cold Brew as well. And it was a little slower because I don't think they're like, it wasn't like it was, I think, a little more accessible. So the hype, we kind of lost that hype a little bit, I think. And it was just cold brew as well. So, but, basically we just stacked the money and I didn't pay myself anything. I was still working at the restaurant for a while, I was working literally every day, like especially when we opened up the residency, it was 7 days a week. I'd be there in the mornings. And then at night, I would work at the restaurant to pay the bills. And then whatever money I made at the pop-ups, I was just sitting on and saving up for that espresso machine, the grinder, all the tools and, whatnot. But when I did get it, it was a big jump in business because, like I said, with San Francisco, a lot of people came and asked for hot drinks. They would just come in assuming that because I had Poorboy coffee, A-frame sign outside too. And, they come in and be like, hey, can I get a latte, cappuccino? I'm like, no, like all I got is cold brew drinks. And they're like, what? That's weird.
Yeah. Were they like, what do you mean? You're a coffee shop.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think I was able to get to that point quicker because of social media, because because of the following growing so quickly. I think brands caught on to that and they reached out for like collaborations. And little did I know they paid pretty well. So that helped me kind of get to the espresso machine, the grinder, and make those big investments really quickly.
So what were those brand collaborations like? Like that's interesting. That's probably not something that a lot of people who are starting cold brew operations are thinking of. What
exactly.
is that?
So basically, brands are going to take advantage of your audience and the engagement you get from that audience. As you can see, like we have under 100 posts and we have a huge following. So there's obviously a lot of engagement on those posts. And right now it's like slowed down the engagement. But in the beginning it was like lots of comments, lots of likes, lots of shares. So it's a good thing for brands, right? So we worked with Square, Fiverr, and some other brands like that. And it's cool, man. Like I said, I don't think I'd be where I am today without that. Because I just can't imagine, like, maybe I would be, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, but, it would be a very, very long journey,
Right. Maybe would have been more similar to ours. Like we were very, very gradual with our start. But it's interesting the brands that wanted to collaborate with you, who those brands are and who they are selling to. Because
it's like I said, like a lot of our following is small business owners, right? And I think I built this community of being relatable to other small business owners, and that's why most of my following is small business owners that are in the coffee world. And if they maybe see me using a certain POS, maybe they'll go that route as well. I don't know. Maybe that's their thought. But for me, it's definitely really helpful because, like you said before, like it's a lot of work that we're doing with the social media, recording podcasts and stuff like that. It takes a lot of time out of not only your day, but a lot of effort as well. A lot of strategizing, writing scripts, doing take after take and piecing and doing the video editing and editing the videos. It's a lot of work that I think people don't really necessarily see the background of, on top of building a business, which is a lot itself. So being able to kind of get, some kind of money out of it from these like sponsored posts here and there is huge, and it's a whole nother side of the revenue coming in from the business. So it's awesome.
What was that experience like? I know that I think you said this on one of your reels and you kind of just alluded to it, of when you're starting this solo, you're wearing every single hat in the business, and a lot of those hats you've never worn before. Yeah. So, what was it like learning the sides of the business that you didn't have any experience in prior to?
Yeah, it's I feel like I'm still learning, you know what I mean? Like there's still so many hats that I'm just like, okay, now I have to learn how to keep my books like nice and tidy, or you know, be an email marketer, web designer, stuff like that, right? A lot of YouTube hours, a lot of YouTube University, man.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of reading Reddit forums and a lot of stuff like that. I, it's just that added work and pressure that, um, you know, you get. If I had like funds to like actually invest in like a team of people, or not even people that work for me, but just like, freelancers maybe to help me out, that'd be awesome. And I think a lot of companies do benefit from that. But also, I think there's that benefit of just, kind of grinding and figuring the stuff out yourself. Because now I feel like I'm like, the Shopify stuff, I'm not a Shopify expert or anything by any means, but I feel really comfortable with like making the changes myself and like running campaigns myself and doing email marketing now, and all these different things that in the beginning was really tough is now a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I say this a lot, but starting a business is like the best university you could ever experience. I mean, you're learning all of these wealth building skills, that like it may be like a mile wide and an inch deep at times of, you're learning a little bit about email marketing, a little bit about finance, but it's definitely real. I think what you're saying about the amount of hours that you have to work to make this happen is really helpful for people to hear, especially when you're coming at it as a solo guy, like doing this just one person, of not taking any money from the business in the beginning. And that's even more of a potent point because you're just one person. For us, it was three people, and we didn't take any money from the business as three people. And so you would think as one person, at least one person could surely take some money. And so I don't know. I just think like for people that are wanting to start something, even if it is just a cold brew pop-up, preparing yourself mentally, preparing the people around you, your loved ones, like, hey guys, I'm gonna disappear for like a while, and I'm just
No,
gonna.
honestly, my
What was
social
that like for
circle
you?
is like nothing right now. I used to, have friends and go out to the bar or, hang out here and there, but now I feel like I literally just kind of ghosted from a good amount of people because of that, because I knew this is what it's going to take, or at least this is what I was going to give it. I was going to give it my 100% effort and see what happens. I'm not going to be like, oh, cool, I'm going to start this thing and just like, hope for the best. I truly wanted to put my best foot forward and give it 110% effort, to see if this would work out, and I'm still trying to do that. It's not as easy as like building a couple posts go viral and, you're all good to go. It's still like, I feel like the lowest of lows was maybe a couple weeks ago, you know what I mean? And I'm still trying to like drag myself out of that. Right. And get back, to where I feel comfortable again. And I don't think that's going to change for the near future, at least, but, we'll see, but yeah, it definitely takes a lot of effort. I feel like it is a 24/7 thing. Like even when I'm sleeping, like that's like, I'm literally dreaming about, all the stuff, my to-do list for the next day. And then I wake up and I get right to it. And then, even at night, it's just constantly playing through my head, everything I need to do, everything I want to do, everything I have to pay, so like all those stressors just like keep hitting me at, all angles all day. So yeah, it takes a lot, this takes a certain breed to, overcome those stresses and, just keep moving,
It's such a good point because we, especially through this podcast, and even when we were in the cart startup phase, we had a lot of people reaching out to us asking for advice on like how to start a coffee cart, and the barrier for entry financially is lower on starting a coffee cart or a pop-up business, but the barrier for entry for your time and your effort, and if you say yes to one thing, what are you saying no to? That line of thinking, that's a high barrier of entry. And
Yeah.
I think what really all of that gets at is, why are you doing this? Like
Exactly. Yeah.
what is the thing that is driving you forward in those low moments, in those, you just got done working from 6 a.m. to serving tables, getting off at 11, like, and you got to do the same thing tomorrow, and then also all the days after that, like,
Mhm.
and that, so what is that answer for you? Like, what did you start with of like why you wanted to do this, and what is that now, and has that changed at all?
Yeah, no, it has changed. It started with me just kind of wanting to be self-sufficient and like, being able to just be comfortable and being self-employed, and being able to kind of pay the bills, myself, right? Instead of, yeah, the reason why is because I feel like just my personality and like I feel like I just can't have anyone telling me what to do. Or maybe it's just I just didn't find the right job. I don't know. But there's I got a degree in college and I went to the sales world, and I thought I was pretty good at it. But just every manager I had or every boss I had, I was just like I just couldn't do the micromanaging and stuff like that. So I was always trying to look for an escape out of that. And this was my answer to that. And it definitely has changed. Now it's just I want to create a business and I want this like financial freedom, like I'm sure everyone does, right? But I want to build something where I can build a family. I can take care of my family, and have something to pass down to them, and kind of that whole thing, right?
Yes, exactly, that whole thing. That was like, you're describing us too. Do you consciously think of that in the low moments? You're like, hey, this is why I'm doing it, or do you think it's just kind
Yeah.
of built into you now?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think sometimes I think for anybody, it'd be easy to feel like when you're at that low, that you're, to just kind of have these second thoughts and be like, maybe this isn't working out. Maybe I should pull the plug on this, or maybe I should find a job, and have a W-2 paycheck and, the golden handcuffs. But yeah, so then, I kind of always have these like thoughts of like, just like keep going and like just keep pushing, and it'd all be worth it, and try to remind myself of those things that this is the reason why I'm doing it. And that's a whole nother reason why I want to do the social media as well, because I think it holds you accountable, right? If I'm going to sit here and like post or like, hey, like this is me starting a business, how big I could scale it. Like I really do want to see how big I could scale it. Not saying I want to be like a Starbucks and like scale like that big, but I do want to get to a point where, you know, I reach that goal. And if I don't, then I'll still be trying.
So good. Um, you're mentioning pushing forward amidst hardship, amidst exhaustion. How do you decide what to do? Like, because like on our side of things, starting with three people, the
Yeah.
three of us we're three distinct people. We have different focuses, different talents, different
Mhm.
different things we focus on. And so as one person, all of the different things you could be focusing on in your business, how do you decide to manage your time and allocate that resource?
Yeah. No, it's funny. I mean, sometimes I do need like another pair of eyes. And that's when I would call in my wife and be like, hey, what do you think about this? What should I say about, to this person? Or, how should I pitch this idea to this person, stuff like that. But so she does help on that end, to kind of like bring me down to earth sometimes, because it is very easy to get just kind of distracted from all the things happening at once, and just kind of flooding my brain. But I think as far as like managing time, I literally just have like a to do list, like, and anything, even the smallest things that I have to do, like pay my water bill, or like on there, you know what I mean? And I just literally wake up one day and I'll sit down at the computer and I'll just go one by one and just knock out as many kind of tasks that I need to do. I do think there's room to be a little more organized in that aspect. But yeah, you're right. Being one person and trying to manage everything and being efficient is tough. I do think I could be more efficient, but I think I'm able to get everything I need to get done, or most of them at least, the most important things done. So
we've talked about the importance of a to-do list a good bit on this
very
program.
simple but effective tool,
Absolutely. And when you have 1,000 things flying around in your brain of how to maintain but also grow, and also fires to put out, and also personal life, and you're trying to have a marriage, and you're like, you have all these things, you can't afford to not be organized, because like everything you forget is more costly whenever it's just you and whenever the business is so small. um so pivoting a little bit towards roasting,
Yeah.
I want to ask you about that, because we also get a lot of questions of like, all right, I'm a coffee shop. When do I get into roasting?
Right.
Like you said, it's like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And having gone through that ourselves, like we started in 2016 as a cart, and then we started roasting in 2018, like in roasting in someone else's space, and started building out our wholesale and e-commerce. And we very quickly realized that it is a very, very different business, roasting,
Yeah.
than running a cafe. Like there are very few commonalities besides it's coffee. Like you're
Literally.
in the coffee industry, yes, but it's such a different approach, different skill set. I'm wondering. I know you mentioned wanting to have something to sell to, your more global brand and people following on Instagram,
Mhm.
but what made you get into the roasting side?
Yeah, so that was one of them. One of the reasons. The other reason would be just looking at, how can I bring down my cost, and obviously roasting would help you do that instead of buying from another roaster. So yeah, that was one thing. Is kind of okay. Maybe we can take down our cost of goods a little bit, and see a better margin for profits. And then also, yeah, tapping into that fan, I guess fan, but I don't want to call it fans, but following that is outside of our hyper local area that can't necessarily drive to get coffee. So those are the two reasons we did that. And yeah, I agree. It's a totally different business, but right now I feel like we have to, I don't know. I don't want to get too far into it, but I might have to hop on the roaster myself, because even like right now we get it roasted. It's called toll roasting. I'm sure but basically we have someone who I paid a good deal of money just to kind of teach me the ropes on roasting myself. And I realized if I want to offer like a really solid product, I should probably just hire him to do it for me first, because he got second overall in the nation in roasting competition. So
Wow.
that's a pretty cool thing to have him roasting. But at the same time, he's getting a little expensive, so I might have to do it myself sooner or later. But we'll see.
That's so tough though. Like I remember when we made the jump to, we were serving, have you heard of Cat and Cloud coffee?
Yeah, they're right over
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yep. In Santa Cruz. So,
Mm-hmm.
we were using their coffee, and obviously their coffee is amazing and their
Mm-hmm.
company is amazing, and they were a big inspiration for us and still continue to be. But when we made the transition to our brand, like it was not as good, for sure. Like
Yeah, yeah.
we were using a good roaster, Dietrich IR12. We
Mm,
had all the stuff, but like the person sitting behind the roaster was from our team and had like no experience. But there's
right.
that scary jump where you know, 1 week you have Cat and Cloud coffee, and then the next week it's like we're making the jump and there's no turning back. And
Yeah.
I can just remember like pulling some of our espresso for the first time behind our pop-up and just being like, this is different for sure.
Yeah.
It wasn't awful, but right, I mean, but so it makes sense why, if you have access to someone like that, like you're paying them, and that is a cost for sure, but still overall cheaper than
Yeah,
buying coffee from a roaster, right?
exactly. Yeah, it's still cheaper, and the coffee is it's right up to par to what we're using, like a really good coffee over here as well. Um, but it's right up, it's up there. Honestly, I think it's a little better, but I'm not gonna I won't say that, but it's
Well, it has your brand on it too, and that's so
yeah, and
powerful.
I don't want to be biased in that way. Um, but yeah, because at the end of the day, too, coffee is like, especially specialty coffee. A lot of coffee roasters get their coffee from the same places. You know what I mean? There's like big names and certain farms, and you know, um, you see them all over the place. Like there's some coffees that I have that are like Diego Bermudez and Nestor Lasso and stuff like that. Like you find those in a lot of different roasters. I guess the difference is like who roast it. But you know,
Definitely who roast it, but also like to the earlier point of like, what are you selling? Are you selling a bag of coffee or are you
exactly.
selling your brand?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm wondering when you made the switch to your brand, are you selling individual bags of coffee at your pop ups?
Yeah. So yeah, we're selling bags at the pop-ups. And it's kind of weird too because I feel like when we don't have a pop-up, it almost slows down the website sales. And I don't have like too much like information or like data to like back that up, but it's just kind of like something I've noticed when we did shut down. Maybe it was a coincidence, I don't know, but yeah.
Um, I'm also wondering, you're in this sales job before, right?
Yeah.
And there's a certain set of skills that you learn and grow in as you do that. Did any of those carry over to working behind the bar and running this business?
100%. I mean, honestly, I think I have to kind of think serving tables because I worked in restaurants like pretty much my whole life. Um, and I think when I first started serving tables, it was like I definitely lied about my experience to serve tables because I had to like kind of put myself through college and like pay these bills. I couldn't start at like a bussing position. I needed to make money. And I needed to make server money, not like, bussing tables money. But so I would like lie. I lied about my position. I got a job serving tables, and the first table I'd go up to say specials, I'm like so nervous, like shaking. You know what I mean? Because I'm a pretty introverted person actually. So yeah, it was kind of freaked me out to talk to strangers all day. But after a while, you start to kind of just gain these like really important people skills, talking skills, um, and I think translating to like being behind the bar. Um, it just taught me to have like this like high, like to be under like a lot of stress, trying to pump out drinks and remember orders or something like that, while also having good customer service and talking to people. Same thing with sales too. Not necessarily excelling people, but just kind of having those like people skills to be able to carry on a conversation, without sounding like a car salesman, I guess.
Right. To people who are starting coffee shops or pop-ups or wanting to start something in this industry, what's something that you've learned through starting Poorboy that you think that they may not see right from the get? Like what's something that you wish they understood?
Um, Man, that's tough. There's a lot that I would want to tell because there's a lot I want to tell aspiring people or people that are aspiring to open, their own cart or coffee shop. It is a small margin business. A lot of people think that like, oh, coffee is not that expensive, especially at wholesale. But even charging $6-7 for a latte, with all the overhead, it is a small margin business. It is there's a lot of competition in that business. There's very low barrier to entry for the business as well. You know, so it is a tough thing to like be successful at. It's not just like, oh, like you can invest. I mean, one of these carts, like the simple cart alone, is like a lot of money. It's like $5,000, something like that, right?
Mhm.
And then you need the espresso machine, the grinder, and all that stuff. Like, it's a big investment. And if you're going in kind of naive, thinking that um, you're just going to hit the ground running because you're able to make 200 drinks in X amount of time, so you're not necessarily going to sell 200 drinks that amount of time. Because even when we drew a big following and people knew about us, even now it's like we still don't make a good deal of money like at pop-ups. But it, like I said, I think it's a matter of consistency though. I'm not going to sit here and act like an expert in that at all, but I think the only thing I have going for myself is that I'm able to put myself best foot forward. And I think I would say the same thing for anyone else, that wants to make it in this business. Don't get so discouraged. Just keep showing up.
I love that. What's next for Poorboy? What are you focusing on, and what are you trying to grow right now?
Well, right now we have just the pop-ups on the weekends right now, and we're kind of calling it like a soft opening. So we'd like to tack on some more days there. We'd like to see if we can even implement that kind of pop-up, like more permanent pop-up residency thing into other locations. Maybe other wine bars that would want to have us in their space. And we're seeing if we can make something work that way instead of just kind of signing a lease onto a brick and mortar. We can take advantage of other people's places, and it's a win-win because we'll help them pay their rent, and they help us pay my rent. But yeah, and then just keep. I don't want to focus too much on wholesale because I don't have like the capacity to roast that much. But we do want to get into like some nicer grocery stores and local coffee shops. And then the cart. I just got the cart, so I'm hoping to kind of make that known a little bit in our area and do more coffee catering, kind of one-off events and stuff like that.
Yeah. How much have you gotten into the catering side of things?
I haven't done an event yet. I'm still kind of not figuring out how to get leads because right now I only have one machine, one grinder, and that's at the wine bar that we're doing the pop-up at. So we're waiting to get a machine for that spot. Hopefully, a good 2 group that can keep up with the volume that we're doing there on the weekends. And then I can get my mini back, put it on the machine. And I'm trying to figure out how to get leads on that side of things. I watched a podcast from you guys recently, and I forgot who it was. I think it was Good Heart. But he had some good ideas on how he got started. So maybe I'll try to do that.
Yeah, that can really catch fire. And I imagine in San Francisco, it's a pretty damn good market for that.
Yeah,
just
it seems
with the
like
amount of office building, it seems like it would be like perfect for that. And then at that point, you're charging $1,200 for 2 hours of service, and if it's 50 people, you send one person, and the profit at that point you're no longer in a low margin business. It's pretty high. I mean, not that if you can do 3 events per week, and if your profit is probably somewhere over 50%, like that's awesome. I mean,
right.
I don't know how we're pretty transparent, open on this podcast. I don't know how open to sharing some of your like top line revenue numbers on these pop-ups are, but when we've done pop-ups, it's usually pretty low.
Yeah, I mean so I have like some kind of like internet buddies, right? That I met over here as well. But have you heard of Cow Dog Coffee?
Yes.
Guys are awesome. And they have they started off as pop-ups as well in Vancouver. They have 2 locations now, I believe. And they're just killing it. And like they share their top line revenue numbers as well. And I'm like so jealous. Like it looks really great. But for us over here, not looking as great. And it's funny too, because a lot of people, I think, assume that because we have a following, we must have like a line around the block or something. And I don't think we've ever had, well, we've definitely had lines, but um, nothing to write home about. You know what I mean? But for our pop-ups, like just coming back to the wine bar last weekend, that was like our first weekend back after 2 months. And we tried to build a little bit of hype on social media that week leading up to it. And Saturday was our best day, and that was like I think it was like 850 top line, you know.
Right.
So yeah, nothing like too crazy. And that was 4 hours of service. So definitely want to, you know, boost those up a little bit. How do we do that? Couldn't tell you.
Tune in next week.
Yeah, tune in next week. Just follow along, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, the similar to what we were talking about with running coffee shops versus running roasting operations, they're pretty different. I mean, it's similar with running vending versus catering. They are pretty different business model wise, even though you're using the same equipment.
Right.
But you're just selling a premium product to people that have money instead of selling a commodity, semi-commodity premium product, lower transaction, you know?
And you're just kind of hoping it's really based on the foot traffic, right? Because this weekend, like the past weekend for us was like, it's so gloomy. There's like a thick layer of fog just like rolling through all day. And, you know, it just seemed like a ghost town in a way, you know? And those days like really hurt you. You're like just kind of hoping and praying, you know, people are going to start coming in. But when you have those like catering gigs, like, you know, it's paid up front. You're not sitting there waiting for someone to come in to get that $5, $6 drink, right?
Right.
And that's the thing about coffee business as well, is like, if you look at like the average sale, I mean, if you don't have any like food offerings or any like complimentary goods like that, that are like easy sells and add-ons, your average sale is like, I mean, $8, you know, hoping that some people buy 2 drinks, most people buy 1 drink kind of thing. So that's one thing we noticed too. You know, we have donuts at our pop-ups now, and those have been going pretty good.
Yeah. Upping that average sales, huge.
Yeah, exactly.
One small way we've done that with drinks is this is Valorade. So it's
nice.
My favorite order at Valor is some sort of coffee and then Valorade. So we do this like electrolyte blend in a batched, you know, like this is cherry, so we change the flavor.
Yeah.
And then just do like sparkling water or still water. And so people will get that and a coffee drink because like you can get 2 drinks and they're kind of complementary to each other.
I like that a lot, actually. That's cool. I'm gonna steal it.
Do it, please. Dude, Brandon, thank you so much for joining and sharing your experience. And I would really love to have you back on the pod when you feel like would be a good time to do that. I know that when you're trying to grow your business, you have all these different sort of paths, and like one of the my fatal flaw in Valor is like I'll pursue something, and then when it like gets too hard to continue doing that pursuit, I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna go back to this other thing. Yeah. And so you know, I feel like once you've grown your roasting, or like if you get into catering, I'd love to hear more of that, or like, you know, if a brick and mortar's in your future at all. Definitely keep us updated on that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Maybe next time come out to Georgia.
Yeah, do this thing in person.
The official pod. Yeah.
That'd be amazing. All right. Well, we will see you all next week, and have a good rest of your day.